Hello and welcome to Startup Street. I'm Arundhati Ramnan, and with me as always is Shruti Mishra, and these are the top headlines that we're tracking for you this Monday evening. The union government clears its stance on online gaming even as the GST group of ministers submit divergent views, says cannot make any distinction between gambling and lottery activities. Also, CBIC chief Vivek Johri tells CNBC-TV18 that GST of 28% will have to be paid on full winning value and not just margins.
The Finance Ministry tells Parliament that currently all policies on crypto assets and related ecosystems are being studied, but adds legislation only after significant international collaboration to prevent regulatory arbitrage.
Google CEO Sundar Pichai bats for a balanced open internet as the Indian government pushes for more regulations in the digital ecosystem, says it is important for the government to create regulatory uncertainty to help companies innovate.
Speaking at the Google for India event, Pichai also affirmed that there is no better time to start up, highlighting that companies like Google were built in moments of economic downturn. DD startups in India are achieving noticeable scale with an ever-improvising sophistication.
India becomes the first country where YouTube is launching its EdTech offering courses, which lets creators earn through ad-based monetization of paid learning services. The YouTube India head says there are 60 million learning and skilling-focused videos on the India platform.
Elon Musk posted an informal poll on Twitter asking users if he should step down as the head of the microblogging site. Over 57% of 16 million respondents say he should. Meanwhile, 57% of people taking a CNBC-TV18 poll on whether he will abide by the voting results say he will. Well, those were the headlines we're tracking for you this evening. In its bid to connect the next 1 billion internet users in India, Google has announced a slew of AI-powered initiatives to address a host of issues, including the language divide. My colleague Aishwarya Anand caught up with Manish Gupta, the director of Google Research India, on the sidelines of Google for India event to know more about the tech giant is going big on AI in India. Listen in.
We are analyzing satellite imagery and applying these models to automatically, based on the usage patterns, start to identify boundaries of the various farms, identify like sources of water, water bodies,
Correct.
tree canopies, and so on.
Correct.
So that's one aspect. Then we are also applying building AI models to be able to understand what crop is being grown, start estimating the yield of those crops, because once you do that, you're able to enable so many use cases, like giving a loan to the farmer, helping them with banks, with loans, crop insurance, helping policymakers figure out what kind of, let's say, subsidy amounts to set aside as let's say, crop is being grown.
Google is also doing a lot in the healthcare industry. You've partnered with Apollo to bring in AI into X-ray for tuberculosis. So if you could just elaborate on those plans a little bit.
Yes, so Google Research has been applying AI, developing AI-based models for assisting clinicians with diagnosis for a number of conditions. This includes tuberculosis, it includes breast cancer using mammography images, it includes even analyzing biopsies, for instance, to compute the Gleason score, which is very important for a person with prostate cancer. So what we are very excited about is, again, working with collaborators, with partners like Apollo in bringing these capabilities right into the real world. There's been also work on diabetic retinopathy that in fact started out in India.
You have also partnered with Indian Institute of Sciences for the Vani project, right? So, and your multi-search, Google's multi-search engine is also bringing in AI ML. Tell me, how would this work in the whole aspect of this?
See, ultimately, as we develop like a single model which has those capabilities to understand all of these 100+ languages, you can now support much more powerful capabilities in terms of, for instance, Google search. Somebody comes to Google for either text search or voice search, or somebody, let's say, creating a video in one language, let's say English, and saying, please translate it into all these 50 languages, or dub this video automatically in all of these languages. There's Google Translate, which can translate across all these languages. So there are so many different products through which we can utilize these capabilities, right, to now support a very, very rich variety of languages.
Moving on, fashion tech startup and fast fashion brand Virgio has raised $37 million in the Series A round, co-led by Process Ventures, Axel and Alpha Wave. The startup, which was founded earlier this year and primarily caters to the Gen Z and late millennial categories, plans to use the freshly raised funds for technology development and hiring. Now, to discuss Virgio's growth story and the plans ahead, we are now joined by the founder and CEO, Amar Nagaram. Amar, thank you so much for joining us on Startup Street today. Like I said, you've raised $37 million. What are you currently valued at? And also take me through your business model and talk to us about how you're different from other fashion apps out there.
Okay, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. It's great to be always on the Startup Street. What we started with as an idea is to bring relevance to the world of fashion. When we started looking at what is being sold in the world of fashion and what is the consumer need state, we find there is a gap between what consumers are looking for to what consumers are actually getting to buy. And when we went into the details of it, we understood that the way the brands are reacting to the trends in real time, that was the core of reason why there is a gap between the consumer needs state and the available merchandise. Now, what are we going to do in this space and how are we going to be different? We are a tech-led brand. We would like to see ourselves as outliers to the fashion industry, where we bring in tech as a significant lever to help us solve the problem. The tech platform that we are building enables us to listen to all the trends in the world of fashion and then create merchandise faster than anybody else. Again, using tech, connecting a very agile supply chain across the board and bring it to the consumer in a more comprehensive way. That way, the consumers have access to what they were anyway looking for on social platforms or on platforms where the fashion influencing is happening. So that's how we're going to bring a very in-trend, in real-time kind of fashion to the consumer.
All right, so you're going to use tech to bring in what we could call real-time fashion at this point. So where do you plan to use these funds? What's on top of your agenda? I'm assuming tech is where most of these funds is going to go.
Yeah, it's going to be a tech-led. We actually see ourselves as a fashion tech company, where a lot of investment will go into building this tech. At the core of Virgio is this tech platform, which will help us not only spot the conversations that could eventually lead to a trend, but also make a very semantic understanding of this conversation. I mean, a lot of these trends are not happening at a style level. They could be happening at the elements of a style level. It could be a color, it could be a fabric, it could be a print. How do we actually make sense out of it is also the next extension to what we are building. And then when we have these insights to act on, how do we bring the factories together using tech again? Imagine a virtual smart factory being organized by tech, by connecting all the small, medium factories across the globe, which can act on these insights and create merchandise relatively faster than the traditional manufacturing process. So most of the investment will go into tech and talent.
Right, so tech and talent is where most of the money is going to go. So let's take a look at how many downloads you've seen this right up until now. So you've seen over 100,000 downloads. Take us through the kind of traction you're seeing for your brand. In fact, you even had your Singles Day sale last month. So what was the response you saw to that as well?
Well, we started out very conservatively since we were a very young label coming into the market, and also Singles Day as a construct was not very well established before. So we were very conservative and we were blown away by the response. Our brand actually got 250 million impressions on the social platforms, and we were able to engage with 50 million accounts in record time, and over 100,000 downloads happened. So what we call in the world of e-commerce, the top of the funnel, rather happened very, very faster than what we thought it would take for us to reach that numbers. Now, a month after the event, we're still seeing some healthy numbers on the platform. We have over 20,000 users coming to the platform, coming to our app on a daily basis. So could have not asked for a better start.
Yeah, it sounds like a great start there for sure. But can you also, Amar, tell us what categories are currently doing well for you? Where are you seeing the most amount of traction? And also, what are the average order sizes for you guys?
So the top performing categories for us are women dresses, and there are men's oversized shirts and the denim wear. The average order value is around 1,400 rupees for us, and average basket size is around 1.8. Again, too early for these numbers to start talking to us at this point of time. So we're also a bit cautious about how the early signals are maturing over a period of time. But coming from experience of e-commerce, these numbers are heading in the right direction, which is what's very, very encouraging for us.
So it's heading in the right direction, but let's also talk about your numbers. What about revenues? Where are you currently at? What are you clocking right now? And where do you hope to close this financial year? What kind of targets have you set for yourself since you're relatively new at this point?
Actually, that's the point. We're a relatively new label in the market. So the more focus is on the top of the funnel. When I say top of the funnel, it's about the quality of the consumers we are acquiring, the kind of styles we are exposing to them. So we're measuring more on how many styles the users are discovering, how many styles are being added to cart, how many styles are being shared between the friends. Because what we need to establish at this moment is how we are being perceived as a brand or a label by the consumers. When these things fall in place, and again, we're just a 45-day-old label at this moment. The numbers, the bottom line will automatically happen. So the focus is there. If you have to just look at the bottom line numbers, they're very small at this moment to make any interpretation out of it at this moment. And as far as the next year trajectory is, there are a lot of variables that are still have to fit into that formula. Some of the variables are the external variables, how 23 is being perceived in terms of all the financial downturn that we are seeing. And a lot of those variables have to plug into this formula yet.
Absolutely.
So we don't have a number at this moment of time, but we are approaching it very optimistically because we are operating in a price range which should not be a burden on consumers' pocket.
So you're approaching this optimistically. So we'll catch up with you again, Amar, to see how the company is doing. But we're completely out of time. Thank you so much for joining us on the show, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Well, with that, it's time for us to head into a short break. But coming up next on the show, a special conversation with entrepreneur and popular YouTuber who became a household name during the COVID-19 pandemic, Ankur Variku. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're still with us on Startup Street. Now, creative entrepreneurs on YouTube contributed over 10,000 crore rupees to the Indian GDP in 2021 and supported the equivalent of 7.5 lakh full-time jobs in the country. The platform said at the Google for India event earlier today. Now, talking to my colleague Aishwarya Anand, Ajay Vidyasagar, Regional Director, Asia Pacific, YouTube, shared the company's performance for 2022 and how YouTube is now transcending into a true economic value for creators. Listen in.
Well, this report, in partnership with Oxford Economics, was really computing our economic impact for the year 2021. We've actually seen very robust growth 2020 to 2021, and we genuinely believe that the progression will be similar. What excites us is that, YouTube's really been able to help democratize opportunity, help find storytellers a home and a significant audience. What also excites us is that it's now beginning to translate into true economic value. And when that whole flywheel of someone being able to find a community of users and thereon find real economic upside, that's truly the magical sweet spot that we wanted to help find for our creators, and we are truly delighted that that's something that's beginning to come together.
So while we're talking about the creators, I also know that Google is planning to start monetizing the Shorts creators from 2023. Could you shed some light on that? Could you tell me that what are the plans in place to ensure that it happens?
Yeah, so you're right. This is the entire bundle of Shorts content was not really monetized till now. When we come first quarter next year, that's what we are going to enable. The goal here was to ensure that we have robust usage data for our creators and for our advertisers, and that now we believe we've reached a point where we feel comfortable in enabling it. Come 2023, we will roll out monetization on all of our short form content, along with all the monetization that we already have. We believe that this is going to be the first real scaled opportunity for short form creators in any part of the world to start seeing transparent, robust and predictable advertising revenue flow through. And so these are early days.
Now, I also want to understand from that you've just announced that you're launching courses on the YouTube platform as well, which will also lead, a lot of monetization options for the creators. Could you shed some light on those plans too?
Yeah. So see, courses is launching. India is among the first markets where it's launching. We're going to launch it in the United States, South Korea, and in India. India is a country that's very hungry for content that is learning and helpful, that's based on learning and helpfulness. And users in India are clearly showing an extraordinary desire to continuously uplift themselves. And YouTube's being seen as an amazing place to go and find content that is helpful to them to learn more. Courses, we believe, will help this user find this content in a more systemic, programmed manner without them having to find it on an individual basis. This is now going to be then that it is going to allow a creator or a content creator to now allow that content to be found without too much of a hassle, without the user having to search for it independently. And the creator is given the opportunity to take that content and make it enabled either in the traditional ad-based monetization layer or on a paid-for basis, which is what we are going to enable both of this so that in the end of the day, a creator will have the full functionality to make the choice and decide what amount of their content from their library of content goes in through the regular ad-based monetization model and what comes in through a specifically unique subscriber paid model.
All right, one final question for you. Now, in terms of security, I want to understand what are the initiatives that YouTube has taken. Google has also removed a lot of YouTube channels in the past 1 month. Why has that been the case? And if you could just share some numbers with us, to how many channels, such channels, have been removed from the platform?
Every day, every year, we continue to improve this work here, and it's work that hundreds and thousands of our trust and safety teams work on. We've got better at this. We've got amazingly sort of dexterous in our ability to do this. I'll give you one statistic which I think will help you understand the scale of this work. In the last full quarter, Q3 2022, we took down in India 1.7 million videos before they even got seen. And this was fundamentally based on our guidelines of what is safe for a user, and everything that we see on the platform is actually after all of this work's been done. This will only get better in the next few years. We will continue to get sharper in our ability to do this and make the platform even more safer, trustful, and helpful to our users.
Moving on, we now put the spotlight on an entrepreneur and popular YouTuber who became a household name during the COVID-19 pandemic. He's a highly successful content creator on social media with over 1.45 million subscribers on his YouTube channel. He's also a best-selling author. His book, Do Epic Shit, that came out last year, has seen a print run of over 200,000. His new book, Get Epic Shit Done, has just come out. You guessed it right. I'm now joined by thought leader Ankur Warikoo. Ankur, welcome to Startup Street. Now, before we talk about your second book, I want you to throw some light on your journey. In 2019, at the age of 39, you stepped down as the CEO of Nearby, which was a deal marketplace company that shot you to fame in India. Your tenure ended abruptly as the company was sold in a distress sale to Paytm, to payment giant Paytm. I want to understand how a PhD dropout, whose list of failures is probably longer than his tallest success story, became one of India's successful internet marketer. Your transformation into a content creator, is it by accident?
Firstly, thank you so much for having me, Shruti, and for the very, very warm introduction. My foray into content creation is certainly at the level that it is today by accident. While I've been creating content for several years now, I've been maintaining a blog for 17 years now. I've been creating content on LinkedIn for 10 years. My YouTube channel started in 2017, but almost all of the success that has come through has come in the last 2.5 years. And I think it was just being at the right place at the right time where the pandemic was there. People had a lot of time on my hands. I had a lot of time on my hands, and things just came together.
All right, Ankur, you talk about failure openly. Now, what makes you stand out as a content creator? You create mentorship and motivational content for 18 to 24-year-olds Indian consumers. Your videos are a mix of life lessons on business mistakes, personal finance, investment, and career advice.
Your question gave away the answer, Shruti. I think what makes me stand out is the fact that I openly speak about my failure. At the age of 42, I've had such a varied set of experiences as a startup founder, as someone who dropped out of my PhD, as somebody who also had a consulting gig, made lots of mistakes with my money, with relationships, with career, that I had these stories to tell. And when youngsters who were largely in the age of 18 to 24-year-olds, lost, confused, overwhelmed with the choices and opportunities they're facing, saw or heard a 42-year-old go through his mistakes, in some way they related to that because they saw themselves making those or at the cusp of making them in the beginning itself. So the relatability was very high. I wasn't a 26 or a 30-year-old just transferring some secondary knowledge and making it seem like it was primary. This was my own life that made it happen. And I'd like to believe that that was one of the biggest things.
All right, Ankur, in December last year, you published your first book, Do Epic Shit. In typical Variku fashion, you dedicated the book to all the failures and roadblocks in your life. What is different about your new book, Get Epic Shit Done? You've written about handling office politics, how to find our passion, dealing with criticism, and a lot more. What target audience are you catering to?
The bigger essence is Do Epic Shit. My first book got you to think. It was a very provocative book. It wasn't something that was prescriptive, but Get Epic Shit Done will make you act. So it comes with these 36 frequently asked questions around life. And these are questions that I get asked on a daily basis. And I realized that if one were to compile the responses and share it in a conversational format between a teacher and a student, it will land well on people. And should they have any of those questions hitting them in their life, they can always go back to that chapter, read it, and within 3 or 4 pages, hopefully have some direction to pursue and leave the rest of the book. So this book is not a one-time read. It's something that you can chew upon for years and years until you get to the point where you have your own answers to these questions.
All right, Ankur, like you said, you speak to lakhs of young people every day. What does India's Gen Z want? What makes them stand apart from previous generations?
I think the biggest thing is their audacity of their ambition. I do not believe any generation prior has had such a bold outlook towards how much they want to do, how soon they want to do it, and why do they want to do it. And I think it's a combination of the world going global. They now recognize they're not just a domestic workforce, but a global workforce. They now recognize that talent is sought after, and if they were to prep themselves, they would be in demand everywhere. And they also recognize that they don't have to necessarily stick to just one profession or just one stream for the rest of their lives. They can dabble with a lot, discover a lot, explore a lot, and that sets them up on this really nice, exciting journey that they have lived in their 20s or are going to live in their 20s, which is very different from perhaps how you and I lived our 20s. So it's very set, get settled kind of a mode, but they don't want to get settled, and that sets them apart uniquely.
All right, Ankur, before we wrap up, let's do a quick rapid fire. So brace yourself. My first question to you is, pick your favorite social medium to connect with people. What would that be and why?
I think it'll be Instagram because it allows for a lot of connectivity with people through live sessions and stories and, of course, reels and everything. So it'll be Instagram.
All right. Next up, your 3 mantras for successful work life.
Number 1, please optimize for your happiness as against your earning, because that ultimately is the longer play. Number 2, always be kind around people, because if you're kind, life becomes very easy. And number 3, don't question the fact that you are not enjoying yourself. Don't question whether you are in the right place or not. If you're not, please go ahead and make a change around that, because work-life balance is not so much about you going back to a life outside of work and thanking God for that. It is about you enjoying your work just as much as you would enjoy your life other side.
Absolutely, and wonderful thoughts there. Next up, your biggest learning so far.
One of my biggest learnings, Shruti, so far has been that this came from my first manager, and he remarked, and it stayed with me, if I can't trust you, it doesn't matter how smart you are. And that hit me like a bullet, because it's just so true. It doesn't matter how smart you are, how hardworking you are, or any such thing. If the opposite side does not trust you with your work, you're always going to be one shade lower. So build trust, and that comes through consistent showing up every single day.
Okay. Who does Ankur Warikoo look up to?
Ankur Warikoo looks up to the Ankur Warikoo who will be 10 years from now, because I firmly believe that I'll continue growing.
All right, one final question. Startup founder or content creator, what is more challenging?
Oh, 100% startup founder. I don't think there's anything more laborious emotionally, physically than that is.
All right, Ankur, many thanks for joining us on Startup Street, and wish you the very best with the new book and, of course, with all your future plans once again.
And with that, it is a wrap on another edition of Startup Street, but more news and updates coming up on the other side. Stay tuned.